Yeah, I'd like to welcome Steph from Eatsmart Nutrition. She's going to give you a rundown. Obviously, we'll put all the topics up earlier. It'll be in 15-minute blocks, and I'm sure she'll give you plenty of time for questions afterwards. So yeah, let's all welcome Steph and yeah, have fun.
Cool.
Cheers.
Alright, so I will try and stick to the 15-minute blocks. Have been known to go off on a tangent though, and if you've got questions in between while you think of them, this is more so about you than what it is me getting through my slides. So whatever you want to get out of it, we can go whichever way you need to. So I'm Steph. I work for Eatsmart Nutrition. We have a few different clinics on the Gold Coast and a couple in Brisbane as well. So let's get started. We're already running a tiny bit late. Okay, so what we'll cover, strategies for gaining lean mass or losing body fat, and can we do both at sort of the same time? Pre and post training nutrition strategies, so best things to eat beforehand, best things to eat afterwards, and why. We'll do a little bit of navigating the speed bumps, so what do I do in social situations, what happens at 3 o'clock when I really just want to raid that vending machine, that kind of thing. And a little bit on hydration and other sorts of fluids and liquids, okay? Cool. So think about it now. What's your goal? Do you want to lose a little bit of weight, body fat? Do you want to gain a little bit of muscle? Do you want to do some toning? Do you want to maintain your weight? You're happy with how it's sitting at the moment. I just want to keep it that way. Or is it more an internal thing? Is it you want to feel better mentally? You want to be more alert? You don't want to train in the morning and then come 2 o'clock in the afternoon be falling asleep at your desk? And also a little bit of reducing fatigue and energy, okay? So we'll go through also, can you lose body fat and gain lean muscle tissue at the same time? It's a pretty big comment that I hear from a lot of people. They want to do both at the same time. So weight loss, let's start with that one. So weight loss should really be more of a lifestyle change, not a, I really need to fit into this dress or pair of pants or suit in 3 months' time and I'm just going to really bust it out until the 3 months is over and then I'm probably going to go back to what I was doing before. Because yo-yo dieting, so we've all heard of all of the fad diets in the past, yo-yo dieting can actually decrease our metabolism or slow our metabolism by up to 20%. So over a long period of time, it's really not a good way to treat our bodies. And often I see a lot of people who say, I've tried everything in the books and it's just not working for me anymore. And that is a result of fad dieting. So a really realistic goal setting for yourself is probably the best way to go about it. So if we want to lose weight, it might start with a little bit of calorie restriction, but then it might lead to maintenance level of calories over a period of time when you get to the goal that you're happy with. On goals, let's set ones that were realistic, not how heavy you were in year 12 at high school. So our bodies change over time. Our distribution of how our bodies look definitely change over time. So let's set realistic goals to start with. And exercise, not only does it burn calories, but it can maintain your lean tissue. So when I say lean tissue, I'm referring to muscle mass. So muscle mass, for every half a kilo of muscle mass we have on our body, we burn an extra 50 calories a day just sitting still. That's the easiest kind of burn you're ever gonna get, okay? So maintaining that muscle mass is so important for long-term weight loss. Okay, so that's why sort of resistance training and things like that, so beneficial for weight loss, not just cardio sort of style of training. Stop me if you ever have questions as well. So energy balance, this kind of comes back to the can we gain lean muscle mass and lose body fat at the same time. So it is a little bit like a seesaw. So it is really difficult to do both at the same time because to gain some muscle mass, we actually need to increase our calorie intake. But to lose body fat, we need to decrease it. So we kind of do one and then the other, gaining lean muscle mass and then probably losing the body fat around it. So that's typically a goal that I hear. So if we want weight loss, our energy in, so what we eat, needs to be less than the energy we put out, okay? So we need to exercise more than we eat to lose a little bit of weight. Weight maintenance, both the same. So energy in, the same as the energy that we put out. And like I said before, for weight gain, energy in more than the energy that we expend. Okay, so it is about finding that balance in a seesaw. So if you do find over a period of time you're just not losing any weight, then maybe your calorie intake is a lot more or slightly more even than the energy that you're expending, okay? Because we often think that, oh, but I train like every single day, but are you training every day for an hour and then sedentary for the rest of the day? So a lot of the time I hear people compensating and overeating because they've trained for an hour, but actually you're pretty sedentary for the rest of the day. So really thinking about your overall calorie output is really important. But what is energy? Like I talk about energy in, energy out all the time. So energy out is obviously, we've all seen it, walking on a treadmill, the numbers go up, calorie 1, calorie 2, they seem to take forever to go up sometimes. Okay, so energy out is when I refer to calories. Calories is energy, okay? So when we think about per gram calorie intake, protein has 1 kilojoule. So I work in kilojoules, so if that's ever confusing, 1 kilojoule is just 4 calories, okay? So it's a times number. So 1 calorie is 4 kilojoules. Easiest way to go about it, it's just a bigger number. So for 1 gram of protein, 17 kilojoules. Carbohydrates are the same, 17 kilojoules. Fat has a lot more energy per 1 gram, 37 kilojoules. And alcohol, yes, alcohol has energy, 29 kilojoules. So looking at that, who often thinks, gotta have a really low carb diet? Carbs is what's making me gain weight. Sometimes? Yeah? Yeah?
I think the females, should that be more?
Yeah, it is pretty,
males,
yeah.
because the men, they are more active and they have more manual labour as we're more receptive, sort of up type.
Yeah.
So,
As a generalisation, it is females who do often think that carbohydrates are the ones that are going to make them gain weight. But when you look at them like that, any of the macronutrients in excess are going to make you gain weight because it's all energy in the end. If you had 10 grams of protein, it's the same as 10 grams of carbohydrate as far as energy goes, but it works a little differently in the body. How the carbohydrates are processed in the body is a little different to how protein is processed in the body, very different to how alcohol is processed in the body. And I'll get to alcohol pretty much at the end because no one wants to be bummed out at the start, okay? So as far as energy goes, that's where we get it from. If you ever use like Easy Diet Diary, MyFitnessPal, anything like that and plug it all in, it's just figuring out your protein, carbs, fat and alcohol and giving you a calorie intake for what all of those add up to. Any questions on that? No?
if you had a diet, can you, like, if you have, what's a better diet? If you had, say, 1,000 calories or 1,000
Yeah.
whatever, and then, but if you're putting that diet and having it high in one particular, like alcohol, fat.
Yep, say you had high protein, yeah.
So you actually have the same calories. Which one's beneficial? I mean, it's better to have a balance of.
Yep, you pretty much answered your own question. So it really does depend on your goals, for one, and it also depends on what you're doing in the day. So if you're quite sedentary, the body uses carbohydrates, I'll get onto that, as a preferred energy source. So if you're not using a lot of energy, we don't need to give ourselves a lot of energy from that source, okay? So it's very dependent on what your goals are, and it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. So what works for you might not work for you. Very, very.
Have a day, you go, I'm having a celebration today, so I can have a day of splurging and then and balance it out during.
Yeah, it can sometimes work a little bit like that, as long as in an overall, your energy in versus energy out is in the right equation for what your goals are. Okay, so to lose 1 kilo of fat per week, gonna have to ramp it up, 1 kilo per week, let's do this. Okay, so 1 kilo of fat, thinking about everything that I talked about on the last slide, 1 kilo of fat has 32,000 kilojoules in it, okay? So if over a week we want to burn a kilo of fat, we have to burn 32,000 kilojoules in 7 days. So that's 4,620 kilojoules per day. And for those who like to talk in calories, it's 1,100 calories per day that you have to take out of your diet. Okay? So seems like a hell of a lot. People are going, but I only eat like 1,000 calories in a day. You don't. Probably not. But what does it look like? Okay, so the 1,100 calories looks like 2 bottles of wine. So I know generally most people don't sit down to 2 bottles of wine at night, but if you're having, or but if you're having half a bottle of wine at night, you're getting up there. That's a quarter of that. And then if you're having a few cups of rice as well in your day, not saying rice is bad, this is just foods that equal these amounts. But if you had in a day a handful of peanuts, because good fat's in peanuts, but then it was a big morning tea at work, so you had a slice of mud cake as well. With lunch, you washed that down with a can of soft drink, and then you had 3 glasses of wine at night. That's that 1,100 calories right there. Okay? So even if you decrease, even if you took out the mud cake and the 3 glasses of wine, so let's just say for argument's sake, that's taking out 500 calories, that's half a kilo a week of fat. You don't have to lose a kilo a week of fat. That's a lot. You are kicking some serious goals if you're doing that. That's awesome. But what I'm getting at is you don't have to change major drastic things in your diet to start getting that fat decrease. If you look at your day, and sometimes you don't realize what your intake's been until you write it down. It's pretty shocking, or not shocking, but it's surprising sometimes if you sort of write down your day and you reflect back on it and go, hey, if I'd just taken out 2 things, I would have been well and truly been on the road to a little bit of weight loss today.
Hey Steph, 1 kilo of fat doesn't equate to 1 kilo of body weight though, does it?
No. So that's 1 kilo of fat, as in literally the fat component in our body. Body weight, as in when we stand on the scales, go down 1 kilo. So it's probably going to be more like, if you stood on the scales and it was definitely a kilo of fat in the week, it'd probably go down like 1.5 kilos, because you've probably lost other fluids, you've probably lost a little bit of muscle mass maybe, if it's that drastic. So yeah, that's 1 kilo of fat alone. Okay, yeah, not to be confused with all of the other bodily. Okay, is everyone, we'll keep going on with the weight loss thing, but muscle mass gain, okay? So need to be in a positive energy balance. So like I was talking about before, your energy in needs to be higher than your energy out, because when you think about it, we're growing. So a young, small child, to grow, what they put in their mouths needs to be more than what they're running around at 1,000,000 miles an hour burning, okay? Growing needs energy, okay? So how much protein do we actually need though? Really confusing. You hear a lot. Marketing is really clever these days. So general population, 0.75 grams per kilo of muscle mass, okay? That's how much you need of protein in a day. Athletes, bump up that recommendation or that requirement a little bit more, 1.2 to 1.7 grams per kilogram. But no research has told us that 2 grams or higher is beneficial at all for gaining that muscle mass. Okay, so there definitely is a threshold of you can only absorb so much at a period of time. Okay, so there is no blanket statement as to how much protein do you need in a day, because you need to figure it out on your body weight. Okay, if you do have more than that, yes, it's not beneficial particularly for your muscle growth, as in your muscles can't absorb it, but it will put you into that energy excess, okay? So it's more energy, more potential for growth. Carbohydrates. Carbohydrates and protein actually work together. Think of carbs kind of like the key to unlock the door to let the protein into the cell. They work way better together than what they do on their own. So if you think about a post-training meal and you've got a protein shake and it's got 25 to 30 grams of protein per scoop, and it's got 1 gram of carbs. Not the best absorption that you can possibly do, particularly if your goals are to gain some mass, okay? Need a little bit of carbohydrates in there. Particularly around your resistance or weight sort of sessions. Really beneficial around those, okay?
So for losing weight,
Yep.
the carbs to protein, you look for low carb?
Not necessarily, no.
Protein?
Not necessarily. So I'd...
Carbs, because carbs have a place in your diet.
Yeah.
It's when you have them.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's like carbohydrate timing and the type of carbohydrate, really important. So post a training session, to get that absorption of your protein best, adding some carbohydrates in there, really beneficial. If you're doing a weight session and still trying to lose some weight, so you want to maintain that lean muscle mass, maybe a little bit of carbs beforehand, really beneficial so that your body has the energy to work at its highest capacity during that resistance session. So on a day when, to answer your question, on a day when you're not training, if you're sedentary, you sit in an office all day, maybe you don't need as much carbs, so maybe a lower carbohydrate on that day to lose some body fat. To gain 1 kilo of muscle per week, really difficult, okay? Close to impossible. So you need to incorporate high protein with a tailored resistance program to you to be able to reach these goals. So the people with the best chance to gain this amount are the people who haven't trained very much before, so their adaptation is a lot easier because they're starting from scratch, essentially. So you gain a lot really quickly. Starting at a high intensity weight training, so 3 to 5 times per week for professional athletes. Being young is really beneficial as well. You grow easier when you're younger, 18 to 22 years old, because you're still developing. A much better goal from our perspective is to gain 5 kilos of muscle mass over a year. Pretty easy to gain 5 kilos of body weight, as in stand on the scales, body weight versus muscle mass. So how we measure muscle mass can be through a few different varieties of measurement. It might be the gold standard, which is a DEXA scan. So the machine that you lay in, it does an x-ray over your body and it can tell you your muscle mass. Caliper testing, so like the pinch testing that everyone dreads generally. And then the sort of the in-body, how you stand on it, hold the little like electronic that runs through your body. A couple of different ways that we can measure it. But yeah, just know that there's a difference between gaining 5 kilos of weight and gaining 5 kilos of muscle mass. It's the 5 kilos of muscle mass that is really difficult to gain. Any questions about that?
Hey, just on that, which one do you feel is the better one to do, the dextrose one? Gives a more accurate...
Absolutely. At the moment, internationally, it's the gold standard that we have at the moment. It's the best we can do. And there's actually some machines that are better than others. There's different types of machines out there, and some are definitely better than others. Yeah.
Is there anywhere here on the coast that you can recommend for people if they want to go and actually get that done? Because that gives them a little bit more of a...
Yeah, for sure.
Their body as well.
Absolutely. Q-scan, I saw someone with a Q-scan. They do body composition. So that's probably where I would go at the moment to get that done.
The one that we had done yesterday?
No, that's how we're going to look. Q-scanner upstairs.
Upstairs.
Yeah. So Q-scan, they're going to make sure that everything's really standardised. They're going to make sure that you've come in fasted. So a couple of tips with body composition scanning, you go in fasted. Any water will show up as a different, it doesn't show up as water. It actually shows up as muscle mass. If you've trained before you go in, it depletes the glycogen in your muscles and therefore it shows that you've decreased muscle mass since last time. People get very angry about that. So don't train, don't drink anything and don't eat anything before. Don't go carb reduced the night before because again, that'll deplete the glycogen out of your muscle cells. So few things to think of before you go and get a DEXA scan. See it all the time.
So just remember at 8 weeks, guys, what you need to do to make it look better on the scale.
Yeah, drink. If it's gone up drastically, you've drunk a hell of a lot of water beforehand.